I'm Carolyn. The room was filled with chaos as my mother, Eleanor, stood up from the couch, her face red with anger. "You ungrateful, selfish girl," she shouted. "After all we did, you'd let your brother lose everything." Travis, my younger brother, was on his feet too, swearing and telling me I'd always thought I was better than them. Brooke, his wife, was filming, narrating her own outrage. And there I stood, silent, holding my ground. It all started 2 weeks ago. I was standing on my parents' front porch, a cherry pie in my hands. I had my keys looped on one finger, my knuckles half raised to knock. The screen door was open behind the storm door, and I could clearly hear my mother's voice. Travis was talking, his voice low and desperate. He'd invested in a restaurant 3 years ago, an idea that our parents, Eleanor and Henry, had supported. But the business had failed, and he was now in debt. The collectors were calling his cell, and his wife, Brooke, was scared. My mother, Eleanor, a strong-willed and assertive woman, made that soft clucking sound she always did when she wanted to reassure someone. "Don't stress about the debt, baby. We'll have your sister cover it," she said. She never refuses family. I felt a chill run down my spine. I'd always been the reliable one in the family. Since I was 18, when my father lost his job at the local factory, I'd taken on the responsibility of handling the family's finances. I kept the ledgers for a flower shop, a bakery, and a small law firm in town. I was good at it, and I'd always thought it was my way of showing love to my family. I set the cherry pie down on the top step, as if it were a ticking time bomb. I walked back to my car and drove home in silence. My husband, Ryan, a calm and practical electrician, was home when I arrived. He could tell something was wrong just by looking at my face. I told him everything I'd heard on the porch. Ryan listened intently, then said, "The savings account is the problem. As long as the money is where your family knows it is, it's at risk. Open a new account in your name only at a bank they don't use, and move the money tonight." It was a simple and brilliant idea. We had saved $72,000 over the past 12 years. Most of it was earmarked for our dream of having a child. We'd been trying for 5 years and had gone through 2 unsuccessful rounds of IVF. The next morning, Eleanor called. She started with small talk, asking about Ryan and me, and then gradually drifted to the real issue. "Your brother is going through a tough time. You know how Travis is. He just needs the family to stick together." I listened, not saying much. Then she mentioned a joint account we had from my grandmother's care. I'd completely forgotten about it. It was clear she'd been thinking about it for a while. 2 days later, Travis showed up at my house unannounced. He sat at my kitchen table, drinking my coffee, and told me a long story about the restaurant. He'd lost $52,000, $35,000 from the restaurant itself and another $17,000 from some other investment he wouldn't talk about. "You've got it good, Carolyn," he said. "You and Ryan have steady jobs, no kids to drain you, and money just sitting there." As he was talking, my phone buzzed. It was Brooke. The text said, "Family helps family. Hope you're not too busy with your IVF stuff to remember that." The cruelty of it was like a knife in my heart. But I knew I had to stay calm. After Travis left, I made a decision. I wasn't going to fight them with words. I was going to use my skills as an accountant. I drove to a credit union on the other side of town and opened a new account in my name only. It took about 45 minutes, and the young teller, Lily, was very helpful. I went home and started moving the money, a little at a time, making sure to document every transfer. On Thursday, the bank called to tell me there had been activity in the joint account. Eleanor had tried to move money out, but there was only about $3,800 left, most of which was her own contribution. I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. It was clear she'd been planning to use that account to get the money for Travis. That weekend, I started pulling the financial history. I logged into my old bank's website and went back years. I wrote down every transfer I'd made to my family. There were payments for Travis's car, money for my father's medical bills, and contributions for Christmas. Laid out in a column, it was clear that I'd been giving, and nothing had ever come back. I found an old promissory note in the attic. Travis had written it 5 years ago when I'd given him $5,000 to keep the restaurant going for 1 more month. He'd signed it as a joke, but I'd kept it. The restaurant never turned a profit, and the money was never repaid. I built a ledger with columns for date, amount, purpose, and repaid. The repaid column was filled with zeros all the way down. When I added it up, I'd given my family $32,000 over the years, and not a single dollar had been repaid. I printed 2 clean copies, stapled them, and put them in a folder. Brooke sent me a long, angry text, calling me selfish and saying that real family helps without keeping score. I didn't reply. I screenshotted the text and added it to the folder. My father, Henry, called me on Sunday evening. He was awkward, clearing his throat a lot. He told me that Eleanor was worried about Travis and that she'd grown up in a poor family. Her parents had lost their house when she was 10, and she'd always been afraid of financial instability. I felt a pang of sympathy, but then he said, "So you'll help your brother?" "You always do." On Monday, Eleanor texted me. The tone was different this time, brisk and managerial. "We're going to come by Saturday so we can settle all this as a family. I'll bring everyone." I knew it was an ambush, but I was ready. I wrote back, "See you Saturday." I spent the week before Saturday getting everything in order. I organized the folder, putting the ledger first, followed by the promissory note, the screenshots, and a bank letter explaining the joint account. Ryan asked if he should be there on Saturday, and I told him I wanted him to be a steady witness. Finally, Saturday arrived. I woke up clear-headed and calm. I made coffee and waited for my family. Ryan was up before me, making coffee in his weekend flannel. He handed me a mug and said, "You've got this. I'll be on the couch." When they arrived, they came in like they owned the place. Eleanor was in her best coat, her face arranged into a false warmth. Henry followed, his eyes down, hands in his pockets. Travis was jaw tight, not meeting my eye, and Brooke was holding her phone, looking around my living room critically. Eleanor sat on the couch and said, "Thank you for having us. This is what families do. We come together." She patted the couch next to her, inviting me to sit. I stayed standing. She launched into her speech. "Your brother is in real trouble. He owes $52,000. The collectors don't care about family. They'll take his car and come after Brooke's mother. Your father and I have talked it through. The simplest thing is for us to move the money today." Brooke jumped in. "It's what real family does. You help. You don't sit there counting." Travis just looked at me with that wounded expression. Then Eleanor reached over and patted my hand. "Don't make this complicated, sweetheart. You never refuse family." I set the folder down on the table and opened it. "Before we move anything, I think everyone should see where the money actually is and where it's been." I took out the first page. "This is the savings account you're talking about. It's mostly empty. I moved it 2 weeks ago, the day after I came here with a pie and heard you promise to have me cover Travis's debt." Eleanor's smile stiffened. I laid down the second page. "This is the joint account, Mom. You went to the bank about it on Thursday. It has $3,800 in it, almost all of it yours. I left it there because it's not mine to take." I set an envelope with the cash on top of the page. Then I laid down the ledger. "This is the rest of it. Every dollar I've given this family since 2018, with dates, what it was for, and whether it ever came back." I let my finger run down the last column. "Repaid, 0. I set down the promissory note. "This is yours, Travis. You signed it as a joke, but I kept it. $5,000 that you never paid back. The room went quiet. Then Eleanor rallied. After everything this family has done for you, you're going to turn your back on your own brother. You never refuse family. I looked at her and said, family isn't a bill you forget to pay. It's not a credit line you draw on because someone is too tired to say no. I love you all, but love is not the same thing as access. I refuse. The room exploded. Eleanor was furious, Travis was swearing, and Brooke was filming. But I stood my ground. In the end, they left. Travis didn't get his $52,000. A month later, he and Brooke lost their apartment and moved back in with my parents. Eleanor didn't speak to me for almost 5 months. When she finally did, it was a short, stiff call about a family reunion, with no apology. A few months later, she signed the paperwork to close the joint account. And Ryan and I started our 3rd round of IVF with the money we'd saved. I keep the folder in a drawer. It's a reminder that sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself and your family is to say no and keep your own honest books.